Hey, y'all, welcome back to Faith to Impact and Income. I am so excited to be with you here, be with you today and be able to talk about, pricing and are you charging enough and why that actually is important for your clients. And that may kind of sound funny, but it's actually, I've had a few conversations this week with people, which really reminded me of this and something I just wanted to bring up and talk about. And so, one of the first times that I heard about this, about like pricing and like people pay attention when they pay. You've probably heard that, right? That people that pay attention. And I totally believe that. It's really important. And, I when I did my first challenge, it was the phone down challenge, and it was $5. And I just had reached out to people in my network. And then I also wanted to, it was my very first one. And I think we had 5 people that had paid for it. And so it was $5. And, I had asked some family to come too. And so I asked them to come along. And they came, and I was appreciative of that, but they didn't necessarily watch every training. They also didn't do the homework. And so it was really interesting to me that the people that actually paid, they were the one that they were showing up, they did the homework, they made sure that they were following through, they were listening. And I feel like they're the ones that really had the breakthrough from the challenge, right? Like it was really cool to be able to see that in action for the very first time. But I remember the first time I'd heard about this concept though, of making sure that you're charging enough, which kind of sounds interesting because if you're faith-driven, heart-driven entrepreneur, then you feel like your message and what you're doing is so important that you want to just give it away. Am I right? It's something you just want every person to have. And so if you could just give it all away, then you would. But you're in business because you need to survive as well. And you want to continue to grow this and reach more people. And you know that that's going to happen. And so the other thing though, too, is again, we talked about how people will pay attention when they pay. And so one of the first things like that I heard about this is, my coach, Josh Forty, who's podcast is Think Different Theory. He had, I think it was Dana Derrick's on, and they were talking about this concept of making sure that you're charging enough, which I thought was interesting. And so essentially they talked about, writing a book and how a book, for the most part, it's kind of like $15 to $20 is the typical cost. And, now with ebooks, it's even cheaper sometimes. But just this idea of why is that the case, that the same, like all these books, that's just the price of what it is, And so Dana set out to say, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to charge more for this book. And I think at first he had it at $50 because really the idea was if you follow this book, then it's going to help you bring in $10,000 or more. Like it's a really, really powerful thing. And so I think he had it set at $50 at first, which is a little more expensive than the typical book, but he had people saying, oh, like it doesn't really work. Oh, it's like not a good, system that you have set up. But he's like, well, you didn't actually do it, because if you actually followed the book, then you would have seen that it actually works, right? Which I think is really, really interesting. And so what he ended up doing is he just started charging way more for it. And I think it was like $2,000 for this book. And so it sounds kind of crazy, like a book for $2,000. But if you think about, okay, this book, if I follow what's in the book and it helps me bring in $10,000, then yeah, it makes sense. And so what he noticed though is once he actually shifted the price from $50 up to like $2,000, that the people that were buying it, they were actually serious. They were actually invested. They were actually going through the system, and they were amazed with what it was. And so I just think it's a really interesting concept and a powerful story for all of us to learn, because it's one of those things that if you don't, follow up on that, then, you don't have that price at the right price point, then sometimes people don't pay enough attention to it. And so they don't really care. I see this comment here from Buffy that, my patients that pay cash definitely work harder, which I think is really powerful. That's really cool. So thanks so much, Buffy, for joining us live. And I think that's really interesting that when people pay, then they actually pay attention. And so it's an important concept for all of us to know, and to, again, know that like that's going to help people have a breakthrough. And that's really the second part of this is why it matters to your client. I didn't say, hey, are you charging enough for you so that you can get paid? Now that's important too, of course. And one of the reasons that's important is because it allows you to show up at a higher level. If you're getting paid what you feel like is right, then it allows you to provide the energy and the resources and everything that you need to, so that you can truly show up for your clients. But on the other side, your clients are actually going to show up, and they're paying for a result. They're paying you to help them overcome something. And so when they do that, then they're actually invested. They're actually going to be, putting in the work so that they make this happen. And an example for this for everybody is just for college. If you've gone to college before, you likely had to pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to school. And maybe you had a scholarship, and that's great, but like a lot of us didn't. So you had to pay money to go. And so you actually showed up to the class, because if you weren't going to actually show up, you'd just stop paying, right? You'd stop paying and just go do something else. And so it's a similar thing here, that when your clients come in and they decide, okay, I'm going to pay, then they actually are going to show up. And so it needs to be enough too, where they are going to pay attention. And that's where I had just a couple conversations this week from different people that brought up this idea that, raising prices, that there was someone in the PT space that was doing coaching, and they're charging, I think, $15,000. And then they raised it to 20, and then they raised it to 30. And it was just people continued to pay and continue to get, the result that they're looking for. And so it's just really important to make sure that, hey, when someone's going to pay for this, that they're invested and that they are going to show up, because then they're going to actually have the breakthroughs that they're looking for. And so that's why it is important for your clients as well. It's not just okay, well, I can make more money if I do this, but they're actually going to pay more attention and to make it happen. And so just something important to remember, because I know, again, for faith-driven entrepreneurs or heart-driven entrepreneurs, that it's something that, sometimes, again, we want to just give this away. We want to help as many people as we can. But you also have to know that when people when they pay, then they're actually going to pay attention. And so it's important for them and for you to be able to make sure that you're charging enough. And so that's what I wanted to leave you with today. And so I hope that that's something that you continue to look at and say, hey, maybe there's some ways that I can shift this, and maybe there's some different, concepts and things that I can do, because it's a really powerful thing. And ultimately, I guess want to say that it's really up to you to decide, what your prices are. And sure, it's important to look at what's a market rate and what's the different things that are out there. But in the end, it really is up to you to decide that. And so you can decide and create the program and create the services that are really going to help people have the breakthroughs that they want. And so I just encourage you to think about that and make sure that you are charging enough, because again, it's going to help your clients as well as helping you, so that you can continue to fund your business, continue to help you out, and be able to get in front of more people as well, which is super cool. And so thanks so much for tuning into this. And if you are on the podcast, make sure you subscribe. If you are into podcasting and you're watching video, go check it out, because it's going to be a lot of fun, and, just providing this every day so that you can continue to have impact and income, especially by using your faith. So thanks again. Really appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.